In this session, we will be focusing on the preparation of flexible budget numericals. And the first question that we will be looking at goes like this. The expenses budgeted for the production of 1000 units in a factory are furnished below. Prepare a budget for the production of 600 units and 800 units, assuming that administrative expenses are rigid for all levels of production. They have given us five costs: material cost, labor cost, variable cost, selling expenses, administrative expenses. Now, let's look at the cost one by one. The first cost that we will be discussing now is the material cost. Material cost, and the cost which is also given to us is per unit. Okay, cost per unit. So material cost is 700, which means for producing one unit, we will have to pay 700 as the material cost. So this is an example of variable cost. Next is labor. Labor is 250. Variable cost is labor cost is again an example of variable cost. They've given us variable overheads. Overheads are nothing but miscellaneous or other expenses, and here it is 200. So since the name itself is variable overhead, we know that it's a variable cost. Then you have selling expenses, and it says 20% fixed. In bracket, it is given as 20% fixed. Now, what does this mean? What this means is 20% of your selling expenses is fixed. Okay, 20% of your selling expenses is fixed. The remaining 80% is variable. That is what is meant by this. So, selling expenses is an example of variable overhead. A semi-variable cost. It's an example of semi-variable cost. Administrative expenses, it's given as 2 lakh. Also, it is given to us in the question that it is rigid for all levels of production. So what does this mean? What this means is that it is a fixed cost. Okay, this is a fixed cost. So we are asked to prepare the budget for 600 and then for 800. Okay, so this is the question which has been given to us. Okay, now we will be going about with the preparation of the flexible budget. I have prepared the format over here. And like I said, the format of flexible budget is very simple. Here you have the particulars where we will be keeping a record of the names of the cost, and then we will be having the different levels of output. So the different levels of output that we have here are 600, 800, and then 1000. Also, whenever we prepare flexible budget, please remember flexible budget has to be prepared in the increasing order. Okay, it has to be prepared in the increasing order of the level of output. So that's one important aspect that you will have to remember in mind. It has to always be prepared in an increasing order of the level of output. For each level, you must disclose the cost per unit, and then you must also disclose the total cost. Both have to be disclosed while you prepare the flexible budget. You must be disclosing cost per unit, and then you must be disclosing the total cost. Okay, now here are some thumb rules that you have to remember when you go about with the preparation of the flexible budget. Whenever you deal with variable cost, okay, whenever you deal with variable cost, please remember for variable cost, cost per unit will remain the same, total cost will vary. Variable cost per unit will remain the same, cost per unit will vary. Okay, sorry, I'm just have to repeat that once again. For variable cost, what will happen is the cost per unit will remain the same, total cost will vary. Fixed cost, the thumb rule is total cost will remain the same, cost per unit will always vary. You will understand this better when we prepare the numerical. Okay, now let's look at the question, and then let's solve this one by one. Now, the first cost is material cost. Okay, first cost is material cost. We all know that material cost is a variable cost. We all know that material cost is a variable cost. So material cost is 700 rupees. Okay, material cost is 700 rupees. Now, how do you calculate the total cost? So we know that for producing one unit of product, your material cost is 700 rupees. So how do we calculate the total cost? It's very simple. 700 into 600. Okay, 700 into 600. So that is how you will be calculating the total cost. Okay, that is how you will be calculating the total cost, which is what I have just done. Okay, which is what I've just done. Okay, so the total cost works out to be 4,20,000. 4,20,000. Now let's calculate for 800 units. Please remember, material cost is a variable cost. It is a variable cost. So here, when you produce 800 units also, your cost per unit will remain the same. Okay, your cost per unit will remain the same. That will be 700 units. But that will be 7 rupees per unit. So here, this will be, how would you calculate this? 700 into 700 rupees per unit into 800, which makes it 5,60,000. Okay, which makes it 5,60,000. Okay, so that's how we've got that. Okay, so that is good. Now let's calculate for 1,000 units. So 1,000 units, it will be 700 into 1,000, which makes it 7 lakh. So we have calculated the material cost. Okay, we have calculated the material cost. Now let's move on to the next one. The next one is labor cost. Okay, next one is labor cost. So labor cost is also a variable cost, which means it will vary with the level of output. Okay, so let's calculate. For this, we know that it is 250 rupees per unit. Okay, so how do we calculate over here? This will be 250 into 600. Okay, this will be 250 into 600, which is 1,50,000. Which is 1,50,000. Let's calculate for 800 units. For 800 units, how much will it be? It will be 250 into 800. It will be 250 into 800, which makes it 2 lakh. Okay, which makes it 2 lakh. Here it will be 250 into 1,000, which makes it 2,50,000. Which makes it 2,50,000. Now let's move on to the next one. Next one is variable overhead. Next one is variable overhead. Okay, next one is variable overhead. Variable overhead is 200. Okay, variable overhead is 200. And as the name suggests, this by itself is a variable cost. So how do we calculate? 200 into 600, which makes it 1,20,000. Which makes it 1,20,000. And here it will be 200 into 800, which makes it 1,60,000. 200. 200. Then here it will be 200 into 1,000, so which makes it 2 lakh. So we've completed the calculation for variable overhead as well. The next cost that I would be addressing is the though in the question it is given as selling expenses. Selling expenses, I will be coming back in a minute. What I'm going to be preparing right now is administrative expenses. So what I will be doing now is I will be preparing administrative expenses. Now we all know that, or it was given to us in the question, that administrative expenses is a fixed cost. Okay, it is a fixed cost. Now what do you mean by fixed cost? Fixed cost is the cost that remains the same irrespective of the level of output. Now how do I know that this particular cost is fixed? Because it is told to me that the administrative expenses is rigid for all levels of production. It is rigid. It is the same. It will not vary. It is told to me in crystal clear. It is told to me in the question that administrative expenses is a rigid. It is rigid. So what that means is this is fixed. What that means is this is fixed. So for you to understand this better, I'll just keep this as, I'll write this as fixed. I'll write this as fixed so that all of you are aware of it. Okay. Now, what happens with fixed costs? What happens with fixed costs? Fixed costs, the total cost will always remain the same. Okay, so total cost will always remain the same irrespective of the level of output. So here, For 600 units, it will be 2 lakh. 800 units also, your administrative expenses will, the total administrative expenses will be 2 lakh. And here also it will be 2 lakh. Okay, this is what it means. Okay, this is what it means. But this is not what we need, or this is not what we desire. What we, as a part of the format, we must know cost per unit. Okay, we must know cost per unit. So how do we calculate that? So for 600 units, it will be 2 lakh divided by 600. Okay, it will be 2 lakh divided by 600. Okay. Now, why is it 2 lakh divided by 600? Because I have to calculate the cost per unit. So since administrative cost is a fixed cost, the total cost will remain the same. It will not vary. It will not change. It will not vary. Now, let me move on to 800 units. So here, how I will be calculating cost per unit is 2 lakh divided by 800. 2 lakh divided by 800, which is 250. 2 lakh divided by 800, which is 250. Now, let's calculate here. Here, it will be 1000 units. This will be 2 lakh divided by 1000. 2 lakh divided by 1000, which makes it 200. So I have calculated the administrative expenses. I have calculated cost per unit. I have also calculated the total cost. Please remember, since administrative expenses is a fixed cost, total cost will always remain the same. Now I would be going ahead and then I would be calculating the, I will be showing you how to go about with selling expenses. Now, selling expenses is a little different because we just know that it is a semi-variable cost. Now, how do we know if it's a semi-variable cost? Because in the question, it is given to us that 20% is fixed. So what does that mean? 20% of selling expenses is fixed, 80% is variable. 20% is fixed, 80% is variable. So what type of cost is this? This is an example of semi-variable cost. This is an example of semi-variable cost. So selling expenses is a semi-variable cost. Now, this semi-variable cost will have two components. Okay? It has got two components. First is the fixed cost, the fixed component. Now, fixed component, please remember, this is 20%. Okay, this is 20%. Okay, so 20%. Now, 20% of what? 20% of 130. 20% of 130. Now, one aspect you have to remember is this 130 rupees selling expenses. It is for producing. It is for producing 1,000 units. Okay, this is for producing 1,000 units. So how do I calculate my total cost? Okay, in this case, how do I calculate my total cost? So my total cost I will calculate by taking into consideration rupees 130 into 1,000 units. Okay, so how much will this work out to be? This will work out to be 1,30,000. Okay, this will work out to be 1,30,000. Okay, now what this means is 20% of 1,30,000 is what? It is fixed. Okay, so 30% of 30% of 1,30,000 is fixed. So 20% of rupees 1,30,000 is fixed. It is fixed. Okay, so now 20% of 1 lakh is how much? So this will be this will be 26,000. Okay, so 26,000 is fixed. Okay, so rupees 26,000 is fixed. So let me just quickly work this out. Selling expenses. Now, selling expenses has got two parts. Since it has got two parts, I will have to show this separately. Fixed component at the rate 20%. Fixed component at the rate 20%. Now remember, this is how much? This is 26,000. Okay, this is 26,000. So remember, what is unique about fixed cost? What is unique about fixed cost is that fixed cost remains the same irrespective of the level of output. Fixed cost remains the same irrespective of the level of output. Okay, so 26,000 rupees 26,000 against selling expenses will remain the same irrespective whether you sell 60,000 or whether you sell 80,000 or whether you sell 1,000. Okay? Now, it's not over. We have to calculate cost per unit. Now, how do you calculate cost per unit? Cost per unit, you'll calculate by 26,000 divided by 600. So, which is 43. 26,000 divided by 600, which is 43. Here, it will be 26,000 divided by 800, which is 33. And here, it will be 26,000 divided by 1,000, which is 26 rupees. So this is the fixed component. Now, what is remaining? What is remaining for us is the what is remaining for us is now the variable component. Okay, so variable component at the rate of 80%. Okay, variable component at the rate of 80%, and then 80% of rupees 1,30,000 is variable. Okay, this is variable. So which means $1,04,000 is variable. Okay, 1,04,000 is variable. Now, since this is variable in nature, one important aspect that you have to remember is that variable cost, we are always interested in cost per unit. Okay, variable cost, we are always interested in cost per unit. So cost per unit, how do we calculate this? This will be 1,44,000. Now, for what level of production is this? This is for 1,000 units. Okay, this is for 1,000 units. So this will work out to be 104. Okay, this will work out to be 104. Okay, so 104 is your selling expenses variable component. It is your selling expenses variable component. So let's just calculate this now. Variable component at the rate 80%. Okay, now what is unique about variable expense? Variable expense, please remember, cost per unit will always remain the same. Okay, so cost per unit will always remain the same. So here it will be 104, here also it will be 104, here also it will be 104. Now we have to calculate total cost. So how do you calculate total cost? Here it will be 104 into 600, which makes it 62,400. Here it will be 104 into 800, which makes it 83,200. And then here it will be 104 into 1,000, which makes it 1,04,000. Okay, so with that we have completed. Now we have to calculate the total cost as well. Okay, we have to calculate the total cost as well. So let's just quickly calculate the total cost. So 600. So you just have to total all this up. Okay, so I'm just going to do this in one shot, and I have completed this. So I've calculated the total cost. Now, there's something very interesting that I want to show you. Okay, there's something very interesting that I want to show you. Notice when you go for producing 1,000 units, here cost per unit is 1,480. But when you went in for the production of the same product, 600 units, your cost of production per unit is 1,631. Okay, 1,631. So why is there a difference? There is this difference because of your fixed cost. The more you produce, your fixed cost is getting spread among more number of units. So this concept is called a scale of economies. This concept is called scale of economies. This is one of the reasons why companies would prefer to go in for large scale production. Okay? This is one of the reasons why companies would prefer to go in for large scale productions. Okay, so it's in order for them to achieve scale of economies. So we've completed with the preparation of flexible budget. We've prepared flexible budget for 600 units, 800 units, and 1,000